Today on Dad Ventures, we're diving deep into the adventure of fatherhood with a special guest who's all about daring to be a dad. Today I'm joined by Jesse Jarvis, a dad of 3, and the creative force behind the Dare to Dad Instagram account. With 20 years of experience leading and coaching young adults, Jesse brings a wealth of wisdom to the table when it comes to navigating the wild ride of parenting. In our conversation, we explore the power of responsive parenting, how to encourage responsibility in your kids, and why communication is key in building strong family bonds. Plus, Jesse shares his insights on tackling tough conversations, connecting with sons, and why dads play such a crucial role in their children's lives. Going into this conversation, I didn't plan to get as personal and vulnerable as I did, but I think that really speaks to the collaborative spirit that Jesse brings, as well as the power of dads coming together to lift each other and encourage each other on the adventure of fatherhood. On the Dad Ventures podcast, we are all about enabling you to make epic memories with your kids. But between the daily grind and whirlwind of life, having fun, easy, and epic ideas on engaging with your kids isn't always easy. As a dad, balancing the daily grind with fun, memorable moments with your little ones is challenging. That's why I turn to the Dad Ventures deck, a deck of dad cards and kid cards, where every dad card is a surprisingly simple, outrageously fun adventure for you to lead with your kids, and every kid card provides a spontaneous, silly twist to the adventure. Just the other day, I went on a bike ride with my 5-year-old daughter. I took the role of Batman, while she invented a new superhero, Rosie the Unicorn. That little adventure was a blast. You too can have outrageously fun adventures with your kids that lead to unbreakable bonds and epic memories. Right now, Dad Ventures listeners get 10% off their order when they use the code PODCAST at checkout. Go to store.adventures.dad and use the code PODCAST for your discount. Make epic memories with the Dad Ventures deck at store.adventures.dad, promo code podcast. Well, Jesse, tell me a little bit. You've talked a little bit about responsive parenting. Could you speak a little bit about what you mean by what is responsive parenting and kind of what is the unique role that dads have in being a responsive parent?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. The idea of responsive is you're in tune and connected to your kids, which is usually where a lot of us start. Where it goes overboard is where you start solving their problems for them, and so you're stepping in too soon. You're not letting them fail. You're not letting them suffer the consequences of some of their choices. But you're responsive. You're right there with them. And one of the great questions for responsive parenting that I use is, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So kid comes up, oh my gosh, Dad, my homework's not done. My teacher saying that I'm not going to be able to pass. Now, responsive parenting listens to the comment. Great. First of all, we're having this conversation. Some parents don't even do that. But the next step is not, well, let me solve everything for you, but the more restrained, what are you going to do? And then you hopefully just let it sit there. And that one question probably saves me the most sort of mental energy as a parent, because it stops me from trying to problem solve, which I want to do. I love my kids. But is hopefully teaching them this sense of personal responsibility, that I've made these choices and they're my responsibility now to solve them. Now I've got someone with me. I'm not on my own. I got someone here who's present, who's with me, who I can bounce ideas off of. And if they get stuck, I step in a little bit sometimes and be like, well, I heard your friend Lucas, he does an hour of homework after school on his own or something, right? Like, you could do that. I heard they're hiring at the mine. You only need a grade 8 education to go there. So, you got this range. And so you can sprinkle them in, right? But you get them started. Get them started. And so you're there. You're not answering it, but you're responsive. And so I didn't create that term, but as I've started to read and the stuff that I've identified with this genre of parenting, of responsive parenting, really resonates with me, and
Yeah.
I've found awesome results with it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That resonates with me as well. And I think you talked, about the personal responsibility and what are you going to do, right? And I think those sort of ideas or concepts are really dad focused. Like we love moms. Moms are going to be very nurturing and in general and very loving and just kind of wrap their arms around the kids, and that's great. And we need that. But asking the question, what are you going to do about that? And
Yeah.
letting them sit with that and solve their own problem. It's amazing. I've got a preschooler girl and every day she never knows where her shoes are. When it's time to go to preschool, she never knows where her shoes are, right? And
Yeah.
I've tried to teach her, like, look, you put your shoes off in the same place every single time right here, and you put them in the bin, and then you don't have to think about it. I've tried to teach her that. But every day it's I'm crying, I don't know where my shoes are, and the tears are running down her face. And I could easily go look around the house and be like, okay, here's your shoes. But instead it's like, no, um, where do you think your shoes are? What are you going to do about that? Where do you think you need to look for them? Where
Yeah.
have you looked for them? And just kind of coach her and mentor her through that problem solving experience. I like that.
Yeah, it's a huge, and it's more of a paternal role. And there's what is it, 1 in 3 homes, at least in America, like there's no father presence, period, right? And so you miss out on this sense of responsibility. And
Hmm.
yeah, but it's hard even as a dad. I just want to solve all their problems all the
Yeah,
time. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Or in my darker times, like I'm in a rush. Like I'm just gonna grab your shoes and we're gonna get to school at the time I wanted to, not 5 minutes later. So it's a discipline, but with good community and good input, like listening to podcasts, things like that, it makes a big difference. And you start
Hmm.
stacking these W's, and then pretty soon, they know where the shoes are, or they're hanging up their jacket, or their rooms are more orderly. And that's maybe not what everyone wants for their kids, but that's certainly what I'm chasing as a parent is giving them a strong sense of responsibility.
Hmm. Yeah. Personal responsibility. That's kind of in my list of top 5 values that I'm trying to inculcate in my kids. Personal responsibility is one of them, and thinking through you have
Yeah. What
choices,
else
you
is
have
in the What else
decisions.
is in the top five? What else cracked the top five?
High independence would
Yeah.
be another one, which was highly related to personal responsibility.
Hmm.
And then a high degree of respect. And mean respect for themselves, respect for others, and also respect for community and for God. We're a very religious family in our household, so sort of a respect to some moral or value system that is
Yeah.
bigger than us, and adhering to that. I think those would be in there. What the last one is that rounds it all out. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
Wasn't
those are
important
some of the
anyway.
high ones. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about communication. Jesse, you've got 3 kids. I
Hmm.
would love to hear from you. Um, Maybe a time when you feel like communication was just excellent with your kids and they got it and you got it and you bonded and
Mm,
it was amazing. But also, I want to hear another time in which communication didn't go so well and sort of what you learned from both of those experiences.
yeah. Let's start with failure because that'll be the funniest, especially with this self-given thought leader dad title that I carry now, which I'm top 500 in the world, at least
There you
according to
go. Yeah.
Google. But um, so I read when I first heard this idea of a family motto, I got very, very excited, and I got too excited. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna take. We kind of have a Friday night tradition of pizza and whatever show is on, right? So the Mandalorian, or we just finished the
Hmm.
Percy Jackson
Hmm.
one, but we kind of have
Oh, yeah.
this communal. I like the communal family experience. Screens aren't toxic, just if they're. I like them being used appropriately. Plus,
Hmm.
I would never watch those shows on my own. But anyway, I get so excited for this family motto idea and improving communication and all its benefits that I say, hey guys, we're still gonna have pizza, but instead of watching TV that you've been looking forward to all week, we're gonna meet and talk about our feelings and what's important. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just was so deluded. And so we're sitting at the table and I'm trying to get them to talk, but they're I've just robbed them of this other thing. And so they weren't excited about it at all. So that ended up being more of just a monologue, and I ended up getting frustrated. Like, isn't this important to you guys? I want to talk about this. This is your, and had to cut the cord about 15 minutes in, uh, and that was pretty recent. But that tied into something. I was like, oh man, we just, what's funny? We just need this in our routine. I was trying to overcorrect, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is such a common parenting thing where you realize you're doing something the wrong way. And so then you go, oh, I got to fix this. And you go way too far the other way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I said, okay, instead of that, uh, we're just going to talk at Sunday dinner.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be our design. We're going to talk. I don't call it a family meeting, but I set aside time. I warned them all though. I'm like, hey, Sunday nights, this is our talking meal in the books. No anything. I want y'all to be ready. We're going to be talking. And once we got that routine, and once I'd sort of earned the trust, then we were able to do the things I wanted to do, which was, great. So then communication improved. Once I corrected it more slowly, right? But when I tried
Yeah.
this huge overcorrection, it had the opposite effect. But just being intentional and just planning ahead, I think would be the difference there, right? It's like, okay, I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
correct this in a day. I'm going to correct this over the course of a month or 6 weeks. We're going to sit
Yeah.
down, and once kids felt safe, well, then they could talk all about what was important to them and who they wanted to be. And as far as communication, those meetings ended up being incredibly powerful because now at the end of
Yeah.
the week, anyone carrying grievances can sort of air it out. We can talk about ways we held up ourselves, or ways that we let each other down, and it becomes a space now where we don't let things fester too long, and we celebrate things that maybe got missed in the whirlwind of a normal week. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, so
Yeah. I love
all
that.
part.
I don't know if you're familiar with, I think it's Bruce Fowler, something along those lines, kind of wrote the book, what is it, Secrets of Happy Families, where he just kind of would like sit and observe families that were functioning really well and just kind of write like what they were doing. And he sat down with one, and the dad was a software developer. And in software development, they work in essentially 2 week sprints. And at the end of that sprint, they have a
Interesting.
retroactive type of a meeting where the team sits down and they essentially have three questions that they ask: what went well in the last sprint? What can we do better? And what are we going to do to improve? Like, which one of these things are we going to do better?
Wow,
And
interesting.
so this software developer applied that same concept to his family model, and they would have like a weekly meeting, sort of like what you described,
Yeah,
and they would just say, "We as a family, how did we do? Did we work well as a family? What do we need to improve upon? And then what goal are we going to choose, and how are we going to measure that? How are we going to put this into practice?" And he talks about how he first tried to do
that's
this
awesome.
and he didn't get the questions quite right. And so he was asking the kids, like, what did you do right? And what did you do wrong? And what are you going to do better? And it was all very individualized, which is, there's a place for that. But he was hoping for more for like the familial sort of system to sit down and kind of do this retroactive reflection
Yeah,
and then set a goal. And then we as a family are working towards that goal for the next week or 2 weeks or whatever the time frame was.
yeah, that's awesome. We aren't quite there. I'm not in the software development field myself, but y- you know, the role of dad as the leader is changing, and it's so funny. I think you would have had more of that when the roles were more defined. Like I talk
Hmm.
in other spaces about 100 years ago, there was no doubt about who's going to work, who was bringing, who the roles were
Right.
pretty defined,
Right.
and that and who's going to cook the meals and things like that. And I think there is some confusion for men and dads now about what they can lead on and what they can't. But we have these incredible partners. We just do it together. But you still need to lead and take charge of it as you would
Mhm.
any team. So that's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
we ours are functioning like that in some senses, and it's uh yeah, essentially mostly just an upholding of, it's just looking over the week. I find that just I call the day to day of just the whirlwind. Like we're just in the
Hmm.
whirlwind this
Hmm.
hour. We're outside the whirlwind. Hey, how'd it go? Hey, did you do this? How do you feel about that? so and so took my Legos earlier. Yeah, well, did you apologize? No, let's move on. Right? Like we
Hmm.
don't. One thing that's important for uh, my family right now is just we don't let confrontation last long. Like once you have
Yeah.
conflict, we resolve it right away,
Yeah.
and we don't let that fester. Perfect families are not places that don't have conflict.
Mhm.
They are places where you teach them how to resolve conflict. And again,
Yep.
that's a strong paternal role, right? Like of
Yep.
resolving conflict, of regulation, of controlling power and controlling your volume, and being
Hmm.
disciplined that way. So yeah, if anyone hasn't done it, I strongly recommend. Don't ascribe anything you want to it. Try and make the meal interesting. I would say on that side, right? You can't make that
Yeah.
meal lame. This isn't a KD night. This is something to be excited
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Um, sorry, that's a Canadianism. We eat a lot of dinner. We call it KD. I just realized that.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
uh, yeah, the whole thing up here. The boxes just say KD. Anyway, um,
Is it like a is it like a boring meal? Like a starchy, just kind of rice, or what is it?
oh, it's just the new. This is just the mac and cheese that from Kraft.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
single
Okay.
box mac and cheese, but we have a whole infrastructure based around it because it's so popular. Read like just
Okay.
within Canada, somehow somewhere it got extremely popular, and so
Okay.
KD is short term for mac and cheese.
Oh, got it. Okay. All
But
right. Canadians like their mac and cheese. I did
we
not know that.
do. It's true, man. So yeah, something to look forward to. But if you don't seize the time, you don't ever get it. You
Hmm.
know, if you don't
Hmm.
say Sunday nights we talk, you never talk. If you don't
Yeah.
say uh, this is what we do, then the whirlwind just swallows you up. Right? I got three
Hmm.
kids. I'm
Hmm.
even looking at my 14-year-old going, man, I'm like, where, what? Right?
Yeah.
Where did you go? Weren't you
The time
just
passes. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
it and that's the whirlwind of parenting. And so you can't seize everything. You got to pick what's important. I found
Hmm.
spaces for our kids to treat them like adults and treat them like parents is really really high good value. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you say that, you have to be deliberate and seize that time, seize that space, because otherwise the whirlwind of life, we're humans, we'll go to the path of least resistance. And I was kind of feeling this the other night, like, it's kind of, I had a couple of kids watching TV and another kid playing a video game, and we're getting on towards bedtime. And, I was like, okay, everybody turn off the screen. It's bedtime. And we're about to, start the chaos of bedtime. But then I was like, you know what? We haven't really had a lot of like family togetherness today, and we're a religious household. So I was like, okay, everybody, stop what you're doing before we do bedtime. We're gonna just have family prayer. We're just gonna get together and do a
awesome.
little prayer together, have a little moment to be together, and then we'll go on to the chaos of bedtime, and all that
Awesome.
will happen. But it's like you have to take those moments and really be deliberate about that.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, religious or not. I mean, just say we're gonna take time to be grateful.
Hmm.
Before we go to bed, I
Yeah.
just want to hear something you're grateful for. Like these spaces are important, no matter what your sort of religious background. The spaces matter
Yeah.
to the family.
Yeah.
And but you're right, those moments, and you're probably tired, right? I know I'm on my phone going, oh my gosh, okay, almost facing that. You're like, okay, it's coming. You're just waiting,
Yeah.
like it's coming. But yeah, it's and they add up. Like these little things don't seem like they matter until you're dropping your kid off at college. I think
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
only retroactive where you'll look back and be, oh, I wish we prayed more. I wish we'd done more, right?
Yeah.
And
Wish we had
so
spent more time together. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so that's a good word, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's smart.
Circling back around a little bit to communication, being a dad often involves having tough conversations with your kids, and
Yeah.
usually these conversations are about morals or family values. Maybe they've been broken or haven't been completely understood by the kids, but
Mm.
just tough conversations is kind of any nature that usually it's a dad who takes those upon himself. What like practical tips do you have for dads when approaching challenging conversations with their kids? How do they prepare for that? What should they do during that conversation? What tips do you have?
Well, it's almost too large a topic offer specific advice because, if you're, if your 14-year-old son, if you caught him on porn, that's something that's got to stop right away.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just using too many screens, you feel like there's screen addiction, there's maybe a different conversation there. If you find out someone's being bullied or being bullied at school, there's a range of things that sort of need to be dealt with immediately. I would just caution overcorrect. So if you can be honest enough with yourself to be like, shoot, I need to have this conversation, but we aren't. Like I've been working and haven't been home, and so I'm going to try and force this very important conversation now. I would recommend, that would be my advice, is do not do that. As important as it seems, getting that conversation right the first time is too important. And so for me, I try and earn the right. So if I know there's something big coming because I heard you were picking on someone at school, or there's something, right? Or for real life, like, you say your homework's done, it's really not done.
Mm-hmm.
I give them space. So I'll set up a date. This is what I actually do. I'll set up one-on-one time. So be like, hey, we're going out. So they never see it coming. Maybe they do now, but at least the person is excited to go. So we're out. And I give them space, and then I can usually tell within the first 20, 30 minutes if we're ready to talk or not. If they're quiet, if they're pulling away, if they're not reciprocating, then I'm like, okay, I got my work cut out for me, and I try and just listen. I'll spend that 45 minutes trying to listen, to sort of build a base of love and readiness to hear it. And then I'll follow it up with a conversation the next day. I'll be like, hey, come for a walk, or can we do this? Or one-on-one in the car works good. Yeah. And then you have the space to do it. You only need the 10 or 15 minutes because you've taken the time to earn the right, or lay the base, or whatever you want to use. But yeah, don't avoid it. It's so easy to avoid. The temptation to avoid it is huge.
Yes. Yeah.
But this is what's giving, that's a generalization, but this is the role of men and the role of dads.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's okay to generalize that, I think, a little bit, and it is definitely the role of dads. And everything that you're describing brought up a memory for me, which was, I remember when I was a young teenager and I had some behavior that needed to be corrected, and my dad didn't fly off the handle. He was very deliberate, and I think it was about a day or two later, and he's like, hey, let's go to the auto parts store. I was like,
here we
go.
go.
So we get in the car, and he starts asking a couple questions, and I didn't want to open up at all. But he was very patient, and just kind of kept asking a couple questions. Let me think for a little bit. But it was about halfway through the auto parts store, and I actually think, looking at our hometown, I actually think he skipped maybe like one or two other stores to get to this store, and I was all the way on the other side of town. But it was about halfway through that conversation where I just kind of just opened up and just kind of shared a lot of the stuff that was going on, and he was able to give me some advice and correct some of that behavior, and then we had a completely different conversation on the way back home after we actually did go to the auto parts store. It wasn't just something he made up, but well, I don't know, maybe it was, maybe we didn't need a light bulb or whatever it was that he bought there, but it was just a one-on-one in the car, auto parts store, which manly place traditionally. And he was just really patient and deliberate, and not avoidant of correcting that particular behavior with me. And I'm sure it was a very uncomfortable conversation for him. He's a very agreeable person, doesn't like conflict. And so for him to open up and have that tough conversation, I remember that to that day. And I when I go through my hometown and I see that store, it's no longer an auto parts store, but the building's still there. And I remember that and those values that he was trying to inculcate in me. And it's been 20 years. So
that's awesome. There's something, I can't cite it, but with guys, so father to son, more so than father to daughter, side to side opens up more than eye contact.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So if you can be in the car, if you can be on a walk, if you can be at the store, there's something about side by side that actually allows men to open up more so than eye to eye, where you're sitting across from each other. Like apparently there's a feeling of safety and a feeling with something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and, so that's really interesting that in that story that your dad's got all this side to side,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
It's like I'm
Hmm.
not taking you out and like, right? That would have been probably too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
That's like, no,
Well,
I'm gonna, we got these other things that we're doing, and this is very much the reason that I know why we're here, but you do not know.
yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Well, and there's
Yeah.
another thing too. I don't know if you've heard of the Wonder of Parenting podcast. Great
Mhm.
podcast by a couple of guys. One of them's a neuroscientist, and he's studied sort of the brain and child development. And the
Wow.
male brain, speaking in generalities, the male brain really relates to spatial things, like things moving in some level of space. And
Yeah.
so they really recommend when you have those conversations, like, yes, side by side, but also moving. Like, and you've mentioned this too. Go out on a walk, move your
Yeah.
body, or now you're in a car and you've got these images that are moving past you as you're moving in the car, or taking a football or a frisbee or a baseball outside and tossing that back and
Yeah.
forth. So you have some level of movement, and that can start to activate male brains so much so. And it works with our girls as well. I mean, it's not detrimental to our girls, but with our boys, that's particularly helpful rather than just the we're going to sit across from a table and stare into each other's eyes and bare our souls to each other. That doesn't work as well as movement or side by side, as you mentioned.
Agreed. And for me, it's so important to make the distinction. So if I'm talking directly to dads, and we are, I suppose, then it's just how helpful is it to know the difference, right?
Hmm.
This
Hmm.
conversation, if we're still on that topic, this conversation, a difficult or fierce conversation I have to have with my son, has got to happen. It's got to happen,
Hmm.
and you want to get it right. Like,
Hmm.
there's nothing worse than blowing up that blowing up the conversation that's supposed to fix something, right? Where you can get dysregulated and now you're all heated up or you need to go take a break. That is not what you want at all. You want to be in control of yourself and of this time, this sacred time. And so, yeah, these little things make a huge difference.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
I'm thinking now, I think my most important conversations have almost all come on walks or drives.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that matches the neuroscience. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah. Hey there, Dad. Are you looking for easy ways to strengthen your bond with your kids? I get it. Life can be hectic, but connecting with your little ones doesn't have to be complicated. I have a free resource for you: 10 incredibly easy ways to connect with your kids today. Packed with simple, research backed, practical tips, this guide will help you create meaningful moments with your children, even on the busiest of days. Head over to adventures.dad/free download and get your hands on this invaluable resource today. Because the moments you share with your kids today will become the memories they cherish forever. Go to adventures.dad/free download to get this free guide today. Speaking of neuroscience,
yeah,
you mentioned before we started recording the science on dads, that there's a lot of science coming out on dads, the importance of sort of masculine energy in the home.
yeah.
Um, what can you speak to there? What are some of the things that you've learned from science and from research about how important dads can be in kids' lives?
Well, I only know what I've read, but uh, I feel like there was this notion that dads don't care, and we kind of get it from dogs. So, like most of us have dogs,
Hmm.
and the dog fathers children, but then you see that he doesn't, often not interested, and then almost doesn't even know that he had kids.
Hmm.
And there seems that because of that, or whatever, with that example, maybe in our homes and in our lives, it seems to be okay to suggest that human fathers have the same uh, biology there, that we also don't are less inclined to care about our
Yeah,
own kids.
there's some distance there. Hmm.
Yeah, but if you look at wolves who live in the wild, wolves have a den
Mm.
with their kids that they keep warm, where the mother stays. They bring home food, they play with their kids, and they look after that. It's in their DNA to look after and care for their little ones.
Hmm.
And I think we're more like wolves than domesticated dogs. I think that's an important distinction for men as we learn on how important we are into the role of our kids. And it starts from day one, holding your baby,
Yeah.
different aroma, different
Yeah.
grip, different vibration from your voice.
Mhm.
So it starts from a young age. You're just learning, oh, there's another side to a person, right? This isn't the light, you know, this isn't the mom grip. This is the dad grip, right?
Yeah.
And and that's it's important. They need that. It's complementary, which I think is a word
Yes.
maybe overlooked. It's not either or.
Yes.
This is not the
Mhm.
either or parent conversation. It's
Mhm.
complementary. And dads are complement all the maternal qualities that your baby and child needs, especially when they're young and as they grow. And I mentioned this before, but Canada has this thing called Daddy Days because the science is so overwhelming, which is uh, when your baby's born, you get 5 days. And we can't be the only socialized nation that does this. I'm sure if I look at Denmark or Sweden, they have a similar
Yeah.
thing.
I'm sure there would be.
Yeah. We don't work at all. But anyway, uh,
We're too busy in America. We're too busy to take care of our kids. So you can take care of them in Canada.
yeah, we got lots of room.
Yeah.
But we have these daddy days. So you get 5 days from the first 6 weeks of your kid being born, where
Mhm.
our government, like the science and the government's in, is like, no, you're needed, you're necessary, you're valuable, and not only do we want you there, but in a way, you need to be there.
Yeah.
And that it starts from the very beginning. And I've met, maybe when I was younger, maybe not so much now, but someone who's about to have a kid and the guys at work going like, yeah, but nothing's going to change, like, no, we'll be fine. It's like, no, no,
Hmm.
everything should change. We have
Yeah.
a new element now.
Yeah.
We have you, partner, and child. Like, something new has been created.
Hmm.
It's going to change. And the sooner you embrace it, I think the happier you can be as a dad. No
Yeah.
one starts out wanting to be a bad dad, but the sooner you embrace where you actually are, take your daddy days.
Mhm.
Take the time. I had a very overbearing grandmother who wanted to, change the diapers and do all that extra holding. Get out of here, grandma.
Yeah.
This is my
This is
time.
me. This is my kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
part of me wanted to be nice, but but knowing how important I was allowed me the confidence to step in. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
this domesticated shit too. I'm a wolf. Let me in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me get at these little ones, right?
Yeah.
And so especially when they were younger, I loved feeding. If you
Hmm.
have a newborn, get the kid on one bottle so that you can feed once a day. Give mom a
Hmm.
little bit of a break. So win, win, win. And then the next one would be just get used to changing diapers. I loved it
Yeah.
because it was five,
Yeah.
10 minutes alone with my guy.
Yeah.
Shut the door. No one cares where you are. And these moments, they stack up, and they mean a lot. And so,
Hmm.
um, but if your kids are older and you didn't do that, there's still lots that you can do. Lots that you can do. It's just an identity of
Hmm.
who you think you can be, and what you want for your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you say that, and it brings up a vague recollection to me. I remember reading of some study at some point where babies could tell their dad's voice even in the womb before they were
Yeah,
born, and they would react differently to that. And dad's voice is usually a lower sort of tone, timbre, whatever the proper sound word is there. It's usually deeper,
yeah,
and babies would react to that with joy and excitement and energy when they could hear and recognize dad's voice even in the womb. And,
yeah.
just spending that little bit of time with them, there's other studies too that between, age 0 and 2 years old, the amount of words that kids are exposed to can activate their brain and help them to gain intelligence and vocabulary, like,
Wow.
later on in life, and a lot of that comes from dads just speaking to them and talking to them. Women, and moms, they tend to do, a lot of the goo goo and gaga, which is great, and that's fun,
Right.
um, but dads are gonna be like, "Okay, sport." you left me this big old mess. Let's clean this up now, dude. You got poop everywhere, and dads are gonna talk if you can talk that out, kind of what you're doing, even as they're babies. That has
Yeah.
such compounding effects for them, going on into the future, and it's really incumbent upon dads to really take advantage of those moments to really bring some masculine energy, into their kids' lives.
Yeah, and it's magical. Like I loved it. This is not like this isn't advice. This is, do you want to live your best life? Like, love your kid. Don't miss
Mhm.
out on them being little. It's awesome. And
Yeah.
now we're starting, the science is coming in like, oh, benefit A, benefit B, benefit C,
Mhm.
benefit D.
Mhm.
Great. But for you as a man and as a father, like these are your moments.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
uh and and it's, in a way it sets you up for the future. It doesn't promise anything, but that in and of itself is is incredible. And yeah, the like I said, complimentary. And
Mhm. Mhm.
it's such an important role. And I just feel, just in my own world, that during COVID I found myself more at home.
Mhm.
uh, and so I started looking for help, and I couldn't find these voices that were telling me. I could find lots of guys who wanted to get me super ripped in 6 weeks. That was no
Right.
problem.
The super alpha male.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
or if anyone wanted to sell me crypto, I could find that no problem.
Right. Right.
But as far as like uh, a voice sharing the complementary value of a father and what that does for your child's long-term benefits and your own long-term benefits. This is stuff that this can't be popular enough. There's an
Yeah.
epidemic of fatherlessness
Yes. Mhm.
across the US. It's in Canada as well.
Mhm.
And
And even in homes where the father is physically absent, he might be, like, distracted by his phone or emotionally distant or just doesn't know how to engage with his kid, and so there's that physical but absent father still, even in homes that may have a father.
yeah, so he flicks on the TV and he's like, well, I'm better than Homer Simpson, or I'm better than Peter Griffin,
Yeah.
right? Like, there's even not a lot of great examples in
In
popular
media.
culture.
Yeah. Mhm. That
And
that irks me.
so
That irks
and
me
so
so much.
in a
Yeah.
way, it's so in that sense too, you can look at that and be like, well, yeah, there's lots of distractions. And
Mhm.
being a good dad, great dad is not an accident. And so anyone who has their kids still in contact with them every day, and
Mhm.
they're living their best lives, I have the utmost respect, because
Yeah.
it wasn't an accident. It's work.
It's not an accident. Would you say, though, Jesse, is being a good dad and engaged dad, it's not an accident, you have to be deliberate about it, but is it difficult? Is it hard to
Oh
be an
yeah.
engaged dad?
Oh, of
Okay,
course.
speak to that. Speak to that a little bit.
There's, I mean, there's so much temptation to do literally anything else,
Mhm.
and without community or being in the echo chamber telling you that you're important, it's very easy to find the path of least resistance.
Mm.
And so, like, you had that example of like, hey, it's 7:30, 8 o'clock, kids are all, just doing their 15-20 minute screens. Let's make it 45 and I can figure out who the top 10 athletes of the 1988 Olympics were, or
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
sick algorithm I'm caught in at that particular time. And so yeah, it's work, but it has to be, because anything worth having is work.
Mhm.
Anything at all. And the benefit, at least in personal development, for yourself as a dad, is the benefits are there, and maybe not always seen right away. This is a marathon, and the trajectory is even, it's not even 18 years. The trajectory of how often it's the rest of your life.
Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
um so no, it's incredibly difficult. But there's a great Jim Rohn quote about, the it's easy to take the difficult road when you know what your goals are.
Mhm.
And I have, values and things that I want for my kids, partly because I didn't get them for myself growing up.
Mm. Mhm.
And so yeah, they're difficult, but because I know my goals, it makes it easy.
Yeah.
And that would be the main sort of adjustment that you can make there. So
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, but isn't the man? Have we ever lived in a time where there was more fighting for one's attention than right now?
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. Like just the phones that are around us all the time. It's
Yeah,
just so much distraction.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And and I have a bit about this as well. Not only are we distracted, but we have no one, like, we'll be able to tell our kids, oh my gosh, you put that on the internet. Like, we'll be able to tell our kids, like, oh, the nerd, the science is in on that. This is absolutely destroying your brain and you can't go anywhere near it. Now there's laws and they
Right.
can't advertise. And oh my gosh, what an archaic time they lived in. We're the first, I can't ask my dad screen policies.
Yeah.
I can't ask my dad how my kids have to be careful on Snapchat.
Mhm.
Right? We're in the uncharted territory. This sort of 20-year period of dads where we've seen the advent of all of this
Social
new media.
media. Yeah.
Yeah, and just media in general. Like, I used to have to wait for my favorite TV show to come on
Yes.
and then watch whatever episode they decided was the good one that day.
Yep. Can't pause it. Can't turn it off. Can't do whatever else. Yeah.
That is not the world that my kids live in, and so on. So,
Yeah.
but it's so important that we admit this to ourselves. Why is it so hard? Oh, because we're the first guys through the door. Pioneers always leave with arrows in their backs, and
Mm.
that's who we are. We're figuring this thing out for our kids and for ourselves. So
Yeah.
it's but in for me and what I'm doing, to me it's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm
It's an
enjoying
adventure.
being the guinea pig, and like I said, if I'm looking for answers, and if I'm disciplined and diligent, it's all out there. It's just
Yeah.
work, but nothing's
Yeah.
more transformational than transformational than meeting a dad and getting them in this sort of river of activity, right? Where like they're maybe on the sidelines, just getting them involved. That one guy told me the other day, I'm, because of our conversations, I'm volunteering at soccer now. It's like, I don't know how to play soccer,
Oh,
but
awesome.
I want to be in my kids'
That's
lives more.
amazing.
Yes,
Amazing.
that's
Yeah.
what that's all. It sounds like nothing, but
But it makes a world of difference to the kid.
it can,
World
yeah,
of difference. It really
yeah,
does.
it really can, yeah,
Yeah. Um, this sense of identity, this transformation that can come upon dads, um, and the identity that we have, once we have a kid, yeah, everything changes. Um, and also community. I have a little experience I want to share with you, and then I want to talk a little bit about community. But
sure,
when I was in college, I was working late one night. We were like working on some project, and it was me and a classmate, and we were both married. And I said to him, "Hey, my wife's pregnant. I'm going to be a dad." And this friend of mine, he stopped what he was doing, and he turned around and he looked at me, and he said, "You will never not be a dad again." And he was really celebratory about it, and he was
yeah,
very encouraging about it. But he was just kind of trying to emphasize, like, your identity is different now.
yep,
You are no longer just a man. You are no longer just a student. You're no longer just an employee or whatever. Like, you are dad, and you will never not be dad ever. Like, that is your identity now. And
yeah,
so we've talked a lot about identity and transformation. And that moment for me was very transformative of, oh yeah, I am. I need to take that identity upon me and feel the weight of responsibility on that. But I want to speak a little bit to that was a friend of mine who pointed that out to me,
yeah,
right? He was a peer. He was part of my community. There are dads out there who feel alone, who feel like they don't have anyone to talk to. They don't and maybe they do, but they feel like they can't open up and be vulnerable about being a dad or fatherhood or asking about parenting strategies or whatnot. What do you feel, Jesse? What's the importance of community and friendship for dads in supporting them in their role and identity as dads?
well, it's lacking because if you look at where men's mental health is between the ages of 40 and 55, like, suicide is the numbers are going through the roof.
Yeah. Hmm.
uh Undiagnosed mental illness in some cases, uh not being able to talk, not having spaces. Has there ever been a time where men need to ask more questions in safe spaces
Mhm.
than now,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Like it changes. It's changing fast, and it's hard to keep up. But you get sort of scared. At least I did. Even it's like I don't know. Can I hold the door open for this lady? Like, am I going to get yelled at? I actually
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know anymore, and I wish I had
Mhm.
someone to ask. Uh, it's incredibly important, and that was why I felt Dare to Dad was necessary. Because this is this is not me as the expert in parenting, but the opposite. But I see myself as a coach, and
Mhm.
very rarely do the best players make the best coaches. At least in sports and things like often it's the people who've had to grind, the people who've had
Mhm.
to learn it and be in it the deepest and work the hardest are those who end up being a good coach. And that's because the it's hard to find spaces. Outside of you mentioned you're religious, like church for all of its imperfections does at least provide a group of reasonably like-minded
Mm. Mhm.
people, right?
Community. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, and something, and so there's places to find it, and but it's I don't know what the barrier. If I knew, I'd probably be far richer. But
Yeah.
men absolutely need this outlet.
Mhm.
They absolutely do. Um, Often they're finding it in other ways, Facebook groups or places like this. I look at some of the advice on Facebook groups. I'm like, this is you were better off not asking the question.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
there is like um it's just not this is not the advice that you
That you need.
you asked a real
Yeah.
question. You're not getting great advice. So yeah, find like-minded dads, find like-minded communities online or in person. They're out there, or you have to start it yourself, like you've done and like I've done. And but there just can't be enough of this right now. I just feel like,
Yeah.
at least who I'm talking with, um, and especially the trends in mental health for men, like this is a time that it's life-saving, family-saving work, getting men to talk, getting them to get rid of their trauma from their parents, getting them to enjoy the adventure and uncertainty of being a father, and that identity. You'll never not be a dad. That's so embrace that identity.
Yeah.
That any dad listening right now, that embracing that identity of dad is coming whether you like it or not. And I've seen men that get it when their kids have already graduated and left the house,
Yeah.
and that's when they get it.
Mhm.
And they go, oh shoot, that was it.
Mhm.
And that's when they choose their identity. Now that doesn't mean it's too late, but to a man they would all say start earlier,
Yeah.
enjoy that identity earlier. And the riches are waiting for you there, and no one will ever love you like kids, and you just
Yeah.
can never love, at least from my experience, uh like you love your kids.
Mhm. Yeah. And most kids will be highly forgiving if you haven't really been engaging with them. They'll be very forgiving. They'll give you lots of second chances.
Yeah,
Um, and like it sometimes it just takes a lot to burn all those bridges. But most dads listening to this, if you just start trying, just start showing up, just start trying to engage, the kids will be forgiving and they'll respond, and that love will be there.
yeah, if we're talking to that group of dads right now, here's what you do. If you can get them out, if they'll go to coffee with you, if they'll go out with you or go for a walk with you, get them out and then shut up.
Mm.
Get them out and do not say anything
Yeah.
for half an hour, 45 minutes. Start there. That's all you have to do. You have to be the first mover. That part's hard. That part can be humbling. But then you go out and then just listen.
Mhm.
Just listen. And that's a starting point for sure. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to give any advice. In some cases, you may have to ask forgiveness, but not even on the first one. If they're
Yeah.
willing to go somewhere with you, you can start there, and you'd be amazed, amazed. The connection between our biological dads and 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 their kids is so undersold. There's within our sort of biology. I'm not a doctor, but we kind of know that mom will always love us. We kind of know mom will always be there for us.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they are, but there's
Yeah.
there's sort of this sense,
Instinct. Yeah.
instinct, yes, that will be the case. With dads, though, there's this approval
Mm,
that we are forever looking for.
mhm.
And so there's may have been hurts, there may have been whatever, but the seeking of your father's approval is something that look at the main stories and main movies of the past, and even Tony Stark can't
Mhm.
escape.
Right. Yeah.
So all of those Avengers movies led
All the
to him having
superheroes.
a conversation with his dad. You've got
Yes.
everything else in the world, but what does he want? He wants to know his dad loved him.
Dad, are you
Uh,
proud of me? Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
yes, and it's not just Tony Stark. That
Yeah.
resonates because each one of us seen that is like, yes, that is what I want my dad to say. Those words. I want my
Yeah.
dad to say, "I'm proud of you." I want
Yeah.
my dad to say, "I love you." I want my dad to be there for me, and that's what I'm trying to do with my kids, and trying to help other dads to
Yeah.
be there the
That's
same way.
beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. When I was starting Dad Ventures, I was kind of shooting some ideas around with my own dad.
Mm,
Um, and I was like, Dad, this would be really, really great, but I don't have any money. I don't have any capital to kind of start a business. And he shot me over some money and a text, and he said, "Here's some money. Get started. I believe in you." And just those words, "I believe in you," like that was invaluable to me. Just to have my dad's approval, and I'm a 30 some odd old man, and
yep.
I still love and crave that approval. Um,
Yeah.
Jesse, this has been such a fun conversation. We've mentioned a little bit before your Instagram account, but where could dads go to learn a little bit more about you, your work, some of the courses that you provide? Where could they go?
Yeah. You can go to Instagram. That's easy. Just Dare to Dad. I have a few YouTube videos that I'm working on as well. You can find me Dare to Dad on YouTube. Um, if you click on the link or you go to daretodad.ca, you'll see that I offer a 5-week course online. And the course is a hybrid of personal development, working through stuff with your own dad, and then working forward just in being the leader of your family. And it's a lot of what I said here today, but we do it online. There's a lot of talking and a lot of going through things.
There's a community aspect to that as well, right? Some calls
Oh,
with you and other dads. Yeah.
Yeah, we get together, we communicate, we celebrate, and we commiserate. You mentioned you're a religious guy. A third of the Bible is Lamentations.
Yes. Hmm.
A third of the Bible is some dude writing there going, "Can you believe this nonsense?"
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
And so that's just a necessary part of being human. And so I create space for that within Dare to Dad. And so I'll run it again, in a few weeks online, so people can be a part of that for sure.
Great.
But anyone can reach out if anything I said resonated with anyone. I'm just a guy in rural BC, so I'm available.
Absolutely. And we'll put links to your Instagram account and your website. We'll put those in the show notes as well for anyone who's interested. And thank you, Jesse. You're doing great work. The dads need it. Kids deserve it. So keep up that great work, Jesse.
Thanks, Aaron.
On the Dad Ventures podcast, we are all about enabling you to make epic memories with your kids. But between the daily grind and whirlwind of life, having fun, easy, and epic ideas on engaging with your kids isn't always easy. As a dad, balancing the daily grind with fun, memorable moments with your little ones is challenging. That's why I turn to the Dad Ventures deck, a deck of dad cards and kid cards, where every dad card is a surprisingly simple, outrageously fun adventure for you to lead with your kids And every kid card provides a spontaneous, silly twist to the adventure. Just the other day, I went on a bike ride with my 5-year-old daughter. I took the role of Batman while she invented a new superhero, Rosie the Unicorn. That little adventure was a blast. You too can have outrageously fun adventures with your kids that lead to unbreakable bonds and epic memories. Right now, Dad Ventures listeners get 10% off their order when they use the code PODCAST at checkout. Go to store.adventures.dad and use the code PODCAST for your discount. Make epic memories with the Dad Ventures deck at store.adventures.dad, promo code PODCAST.